My name is Trina. I'm 35 years old and I'm standing here in this packed community center holding what's left of my daughter's birthday gift. These broken pieces of metal and glass used to be a $2,000 MacBook Pro that I saved for months to buy. My own father, Harold, smashed it with a hammer right in front of 50 party guests on Emma's 16th birthday. She ran away crying while everyone filmed in shock. But what happened next made him regret ever touching that laptop. Before we dive into this incredible story of family betrayal and sweet justice, I'd love to know where you're watching from today. Are you someone who's dealt with controlling family members? Please hit that like button if you believe parents should support their children's dreams. And don't forget to subscribe for more real-life stories of standing up to bullies. Trust me, you won't want to miss how this birthday disaster turned into the most powerful lesson my family ever learned. Planning my daughter Emma's sweet 16 had consumed my life for 3 months. As a single mother working as a nurse at Riverside General Hospital, every penny mattered. My divorce 3 years ago left me starting from scratch, but I was determined to give Emma something special. She'd been through enough watching her parents split up, and this birthday needed to be perfect. Emma had discovered her passion for graphic design during freshman year. Her art teacher, Mrs. Coleman, pulled me aside at parent-teacher conferences, showing me Emma's portfolio with tears in her eyes. "Your daughter has real talent, Ms. Trina. With the right tools, she could get into any design school in the country." That conversation changed everything. Emma needed professional equipment, not the ancient desktop computer we shared for homework. I picked up double shifts whenever possible. Night shifts paid more, and I'd catch a few hours of sleep in my car between jobs. My coworkers thought I was crazy, but they didn't understand. Every time I felt exhausted, I pictured Emma's face when she'd open that MacBook Pro. The model she needed for her design programs cost $2,000 more than I'd ever spent on a single item. My relationship with my parents had always been complicated. Dad, Harold Morrison, was a retired Marine sergeant who ran our family like a military unit. At 68, he still woke up at 0500 hours and expected everyone else to match his discipline. Mom Joyce had spent 45 years tiptoeing around his moods, never contradicting him even when he was clearly wrong. She'd call me sometimes whispering so he wouldn't hear asking about Emma and me. But she'd never stand up to him directly. Then there was my younger sister Melanie, 32, and married to a real estate developer named Kyle. She'd always been Dad's favorite, following his rules perfectly and marrying someone he approved of. While I was working double shifts, she was posting photos from their vacation home in Aspen. She never missed a chance to remind me how I'd thrown away my marriage and was struggling unnecessarily. The party planning became my escape from family drama. I booked the community center's garden area, ordered Emma's favorite red velvet cake from Rosie's Bakery, and sent out 50 invitations to her friends and our extended family. Emma helped with decorations, choosing a rose gold and white theme. We spent evenings cutting out paper flowers and stringing lights, laughing together like we hadn't in months. 2 weeks before the party, I finally had enough saved. Walking into the Apple store felt surreal. The sales associate, a young man named David, helped me choose the perfect model with enough storage for Emma's projects. "Your daughter's lucky to have a mom who supports her dreams," he said while wrapping it. I nearly cried right there in the store. I hid the laptop in my closet, wrapped in silver paper with a massive bow. Emma kept trying to guess what her big gift would be, but I kept my secret. She'd shown me design schools she dreamed of attending: California Institute of Art's Parsons, Rhode Island School of Design. That MacBook was her ticket to those dreams. The morning of her birthday, Emma woke up glowing with excitement. "Mom, I can't believe I'm 16. She hugged me tight and I smelled her vanilla shampoo, remembering when she was little enough to carry. We spent the morning setting up the garden area, hanging streamers and arranging flowers on tables. Her friends arrived early to help a group of creative kids who shared Emma's artistic interests. "Mrs. T, this looks amazing," said Marcus, Emma's best friend since middle school. He'd been accepted to a film program and understood Emma's passion for design. Emma's going to flip when she sees everything. The kids arranged chairs and tested the sound system for the playlist Emma had carefully curated. Their energy was infectious, and I found myself actually looking forward to the party despite knowing my parents would attend. Mom called around noon. "Harold's not in a great mood," she warned quietly. "Something about his investment portfolio. Maybe we should skip," but I cut her off. "Mom, it's Emma's 16th birthday. If Dad can't behave for one afternoon, maybe he shouldn't come." She sighed, and I knew they'd show up anyway. Harold Morrison never missed a chance to assert his presence at family events. By 2 o'clock, guests began arriving. Emma's friends from art class theater and her part-time job at the local craft store filled the garden with laughter. My coworkers brought their kids, and even Dr. Peterson, my supervisor, stopped by with a card. The atmosphere was perfect, exactly what I'd envisioned. Emma floated between groups, radiant in the sundress we'd picked out together, her long brown hair crowned with a flower wreath her friend Sophia made. The party was in full swing when my parents arrived at 3:30. I saw Dad's truck pull up and my stomach clenched. He emerged wearing his usual khakis and polo shirt, his face already set in disapproval. Mom followed behind, clutching her purse like a shield. They were 45 minutes late, which was actually early by Harold's standards. He believed in making an entrance, ensuring everyone noticed when he graced them with his presence. "Place looks like a damn carnival," he muttered loud enough for nearby guests to hear. Several of Emma's friends exchanged uncomfortable glances. I plastered on a smile and approached them. "Hi, Dad, Mom. Thanks for coming. Emma's having a wonderful time." Mom hugged me quickly while Dad surveyed the scene with his arms crossed. "Waste of money, all this fuss. When I turned 16, I got a handshake and a job application." I bit my tongue, a skill I'd perfected over 35 years. "Would you like some food? We have sandwiches, fruit salad, and Rosie made Emma's favorite cake." Dad grunted and headed toward the food table, criticizing the sandwich selection loud enough for Rosie herself to hear. She was setting up the cake and shot me a sympathetic look. Everyone in town knew Harold Morrison's reputation. Emma bounced over, still glowing with birthday joy. "Grandpa, Grandma, I'm so glad you made it." She hugged Mom, who held her extra long, whispering birthday wishes. Dad barely acknowledged her, too busy examining the gift table with obvious disdain. "Look at all this waste," he announced. "Kids today don't appreciate anything, getting spoiled with material things instead of learning values." My friend Sarah, who'd driven 2 hours to attend, caught my eye and mouthed, "You okay?" I nodded, determined not to let him ruin this day. Emma's friends continued dancing and laughing, creating a buffer of joy around us. Marcus had started a group photo session, and Emma pulled me in, our faces pressed together as we smiled for his camera. "Time for presents," someone called out, and everyone gathered around the gift table. Emma opened cards and smaller gifts first, thanking each person graciously. Her theater friends had pooled money for art supplies. Mrs. Coleman gave her a book on design history. Each gift was met with genuine appreciation, and I felt proud of the young woman she'd become. Finally, it was time for my gift. I retrieved the silver-wrapped box from inside my hands, trembling slightly. Emma's eyes widened as I placed it before her. "Mom, it's huge." The crowd grew quiet, everyone sensing this was the big moment. Dad had positioned himself front and center, arms still crossed like a disapproving statue. Emma carefully removed the bow and started unwrapping. Her hands shook as she revealed the Apple logo on the box. "No way. No way." She lifted the lid, and there it was. The MacBook Pro she'd dreamed about for months. The scream of joy that erupted from her made every double shift worth it. "Mom, this is... I can't believe... How did you..." She launched herself at me, crying and laughing simultaneously. Emma's friends erupted in excitement, crowding around to see. "You can create all your designs now," Sophia exclaimed. Marcus was already talking about collaboration projects. The pure joy on my daughter's face was everything I'd hoped for. Then Dad's voice cut through the celebration like a blade. $2,000 for a damn computer? Are you insane? The garden fell silent. Emma's smile faltered, her arms still around my neck. I felt her body tense against mine. Dad, please. Not now, I said quietly, trying to preserve the moment. But Harold Morrison never backed down once he started. This is exactly why you're a failure, Trina. Wasting money you don't have on unnecessary toys. No wonder David left you. Man couldn't handle watching you spoil this child into uselessness. The cruelty of bringing up my ex-husband at my daughter's birthday made several guests gasp. Grandpa, it's for my design work. Emma said, her voice small but brave. I need it for school projects and portfolio development. She was trying to defend me, defend her gift, and it broke my heart. Design work. Dad laughed, a harsh sound that made people step back. Another waste of time. You should be learning practical skills, not playing with pictures on an expensive toy. Harold, that's enough, I said, standing between him and Emma. My voice was steady despite the rage building inside me. This is my daughter's birthday. If you can't be supportive, you should leave. His face turned red, the vein in his forehead pulsing. Don't you dare tell me what to do, young lady. I'm trying to save your daughter from your terrible parenting. What happened next seemed to occur in slow motion. Dad pushed past me and grabbed the MacBook from the table. Emma cried out, reaching for it, but he held it above his head. This is what happens when you waste money on foolishness. He stormed toward the parking lot, and we all followed, a horrified parade of party guests. He reached his truck and grabbed a hammer from his toolbox. Dad, no, please! I screamed, but he was beyond reason. With methodical precision, he placed the laptop on the concrete and brought the hammer down. The first strike cracked the screen. Emma's scream pierced the air. Stop! Please, Grandpa! Stop! But he didn't stop. He brought the hammer down again and again, each strike deliberate and vicious. The beautiful silver laptop shattered under his assault, pieces of glass and metal scattering across the pavement. Several guests were filming with their phones, too shocked to intervene. Marcus tried to pull Emma back, but she fought him, sobbing hysterically. Dad stood up, breathing heavily, satisfied with his destruction. Now you can't waste time on nonsense. Consider this a lesson in financial responsibility. He tossed the hammer back in his truck while Mom stood frozen, her hand over her mouth. She hadn't said a single word to stop him. Emma broke free from Marcus and ran to the destroyed laptop, falling to her knees among the debris. Her party dress spread around her as she picked up pieces with shaking hands. My future. You destroyed my future. The sound of her crying was the most heartbreaking thing I'd ever heard. Just then, Melanie's BMW pulled up. She emerged looking perfect as always, taking in the scene with calculating eyes. What happened here? Within seconds, she was at Dad's side. Emma needed to learn about priorities, he explained. Melanie nodded approvingly. Finally, someone teaching that girl about the real world. Trina coddles her too much. The remaining guests stood in stunned silence. Parents gathered their children, murmuring excuses to leave. Emma's friends surrounded her, trying to comfort her, but she was inconsolable. In 10 minutes, Dad had destroyed not just a laptop, but my daughter's 16th birthday, her confidence and her faith in family. Everyone should go home, I announced, my voice hollow. I'm sorry for this. People scattered quickly, eager to escape the toxic scene. Rosie quietly packed up the untouched cake. Sarah squeezed my shoulder before leaving. Call me later, she whispered. Soon, only family remained in the wreckage of what should have been a perfect day. The next morning arrived with a barrage of missed calls and text messages. My phone had been buzzing since 6 a.m., but I'd ignored it, focused on Emma. She'd locked herself in her room after the party, refusing dinner, refusing to talk. I'd heard her crying through the night and sat outside her door until exhaustion took over around 3. The first text I read was from Melanie. Dad did the right thing. You spoil Emma rotten. She needs to learn that life isn't about expensive toys. Maybe now she'll focus on real career options instead of this art nonsense. The casual cruelty of her words made my hands shake. My own sister, who'd never wanted for anything, lecturing me about spoiling my child. Mom called while I was making coffee. Trina, honey, I know yesterday was difficult. But your father meant well. He's just worried about Emma's future. Maybe if you apologize for embarrassing him in front of everyone. I hung up on her. 45 years of enabling his behavior, and she still expected me to be the one to apologize. Facebook revealed the full extent of the family betrayal. Harold had posted his version of events. Had to teach my granddaughter a lesson about waste and materialism today. $2,000 for a computer. This is why young people are failing. They need tough love, not expensive toys. The post already had dozens of likes and comments from his veteran friends and church group, all praising his strong stance and old-fashioned values. My cousin Bradley, who'd left the party early, commented, "Uncle Harold shows what real parenting looks like. Kids today are too soft." This from a man who'd borrowed money from me last year and never paid it back. Aunt Ruth shared the post with her own commentary about participation trophy culture and how her generation made do with less and achieved more. I discovered a group family text that had been active since last night, notably excluding me. Screenshots from my friend Lauren, whose husband was inadvertently included, showed the conversation. Melanie had started it. "We need to have an intervention about Trina's parenting. She's setting Emma up for failure." Dad added, "The girl will thank me someday. Someone had to stop the insanity. They were planning to ambush me at Sunday dinner with a coordinated attack on my parenting." Cousin Janet suggested bringing articles about affluenza and the dangers of spoiling children. Uncle Robert offered to share how his tough love approach had shaped his successful sons, conveniently forgetting that one was in rehab and the other hadn't spoken to him in 5 years. Emma finally emerged around noon, her eyes swollen from crying. "I'm not going to school tomorrow," she said quietly. "Everyone will know. They all saw." She was right. Several videos from the party were already circulating on social media. One had been shared to TikTok with the caption, "Grandpa destroys birthday gift," and had thousands of views. "Honey will figure this out. I promise, though. I had no idea how. Maybe we can find a repair shop or see if insurance—" She shook her head. "It's destroyed, Mom. Completely destroyed. Just like my portfolio, my projects, my applications. Everything I was working on was backed up to that laptop. I called in sick to work knowing I couldn't leave her alone. My supervisor was understanding but reminded me I'd already used most of my personal days. Trina, I sympathize, but you need to be here. We're short-staffed as it is." The financial pressure was mounting. Those double shifts had drained me, and now I'd have nothing to show for it. That afternoon, I drove to the Apple store with the destroyed laptop in a box. David, the sales associate who'd helped me before, recognized me immediately. His face fell when he saw the damage. "What happened?" When I explained, his expression shifted from confusion to anger. "Your own father did this? On purpose?" He examined the pieces carefully. "I'm sorry, but this is beyond repair. It's not just damaged, it's obliterated." Insurance was my next stop. The agent reviewed my policy while I sat in their sterile office fluorescent lights, highlighting every exhausted line on my face. "I'm sorry, Ms. Morrison, but intentional damage by a family member isn't covered under your current policy. You'd need to file a police report and pursue criminal charges for us to even consider a claim." The thought of arresting my own father, however tempting, would tear the family apart even more. By evening, Harold had escalated his social media campaign. He shared a Wall Street Journal article about millennials and debt, tagging me with the comment, This is why I had to act. My daughter is teaching my granddaughter to live beyond her means. The hypocrisy burned. This from a man who'd remortgaged his house twice for failed business ventures. Mom called again this time, crying. Your father's getting so many supportive messages. Pastor Williams even called to say he's using this as a sermon example about materialism. Can't you just let this go? For family harmony? I wanted to scream. Family harmony had always meant everyone bowing to Harold's will. Melanie posted her own update. Watching family members enable destructive behavior is heartbreaking. Some people never learn from their mistakes. Proud of my dad for taking a stand. She included a photo of her and Kyle at an expensive restaurant, apparently oblivious to the irony. The comments underneath praised her for supporting family values and respecting her elders. Emma spent the evening at her desk sketching with pencils and paper, trying to recreate her lost digital projects from memory. Mrs. Coleman needs my portfolio by Friday for the state competition, she said, her voice flat. I had 6 months of work on that laptop. My entire design series about immigrant stories. Gone. I made her favorite dinner, but she barely touched it. We sat in silence, both lost in our thoughts. My phone continued buzzing with family messages, each one a fresh wound. Uncle Pete texted privately. Harold went too far, but maybe Emma needed this reality check. Art isn't a career. Even the family members who disagreed with the destruction found ways to justify it. Lauren called late that night with more intelligence from the family group chat. They're planning to show up at your house this weekend. Melanie's creating a PowerPoint about financial responsibility. Your Aunt Carol is bringing Dave Ramsey books. The absurdity might have been funny if it wasn't so infuriating. My family was mobilizing like Harold's military unit, ready to attack my parenting with spreadsheets and self-help books. There's more, Lauren said hesitantly. Kyle let slip that Harold's been having money troubles. Bad investments in some cryptocurrency scheme. He's borrowed heavily from Joyce's inheritance. The pieces clicked into place. His rage about the MacBook wasn't about teaching lessons. It was about his own financial failures projected onto me. I checked on Emma before bed. She was asleep at her desk, her sketchbook wet with tears. I covered her with a blanket and picked up her phone, which was open to the design school websites she'd bookmarked. Each one required digital portfolio submissions. Without a computer, her dreams were effectively on hold. The weight of that reality settled on my shoulders like lead. Sarah arrived at my house early Tuesday morning with coffee and a legal pad. As one of the best family lawyers in town, she'd seen plenty of domestic disputes. But the birthday party incident had shocked even her. Trina, what your father did wasn't just wrong, it was criminal. Destruction of property, emotional abuse of a minor, we have options here. I showed her the videos that party guests had shared with me. Marcus had captured the entire destruction from multiple angles. The sound of Emma's crying was clearly audible, as was Harold's rant about teaching lessons. Sarah watched with professional detachment, taking notes. This is evidence of malicious destruction. The fact that he brought a hammer suggests premeditation. But he's my father, I said weakly. The conditioning of 35 years was hard to break. Sarah set down her coffee and looked me in the eye. He's also a man who deliberately hurt your child. Would you accept this from a stranger? The answer was obvious. No stranger would have gotten close enough to Emma to cause such pain. We spent the morning building a timeline. Sarah wanted to understand the pattern, and once I started talking, decades of incidents poured out. When I was 14, I'd saved for months to buy a flute. I loved music, practiced every day, made first chair in the school band. The memory still stung. One day, I talked back about curfew and he took my flute to the garage. I heard him destroying it with his workshop tools. Did your mother intervene? Sarah asked, though she probably knew the answer. She bought me a recorder from the dollar store later and said I should be grateful. The band teacher couldn't understand why I quit. I was too ashamed to explain that my father had destroyed my instrument in a rage. More memories surfaced. Senior year, I got accepted to Rhode Island School of Design with a partial scholarship. I'd applied secretly knowing he'd disapprove. When the acceptance letter came, I made the mistake of celebrating in front of him. I could still see his face the way it had darkened when he read the letter. He tore it into pieces and flushed them down the toilet. Said art school was for degenerates and welfare cases. Sarah's pen moved quickly across the page. What about your mother during these incidents? I laughed bitterly. Mom became an expert at revision. The flute became, that old thing was falling apart anyway. The acceptance letter was, probably not a good school if they accepted everyone. She rewrote history to make his actions seem reasonable. This is a clear pattern of controlling behavior through destruction, Sarah said. What about more recently? I told her about my first car, a used Honda I'd bought after getting my nursing degree. I'd parked it at their house during Sunday dinner, made the mistake of mentioning I was dating David. Dad didn't approve, because David wasn't military or religious enough. The memory of finding my windshield smashed still made me angry. He claimed neighborhood vandals did it, but the neighbors saw him with the baseball bat. Emma joined us for lunch, still quiet but willing to talk. Sarah gently asked her about her grandfather's behavior over the years. He's always hated my art, Emma said simply. Remember that painting I did of the sunset over the lake? The one that won the county fair contest. I nodded, proud of that accomplishment. Grandpa said it looked like something a blind kindergartner would make. He made me cry at the fair in front of everyone. Tell me more about these comments, Sarah encouraged. Emma opened up about years of subtle and not so subtle attacks. Harold had criticized every creative endeavor, every achievement that didn't align with his narrow worldview. He told me I'd end up homeless if I pursued art. Said I should learn to type and get a secretary job like a proper woman. My phone rang. It was Joyce crying again. Trina, please. Your father is getting worse. He's been ranting about ungrateful children all morning. Can't you just apologize so we can move past this? Something in her voice was different, though. A weariness that seemed deeper than usual. Mom, has he ever destroyed your things? The silence lasted so long I thought she'd hung up. Finally, in a whisper, my mother's pearl necklace, the one she left me. I wore it to our anniversary dinner 5 years ago. He said I was showing off and it disappeared that night. He said I must have lost it, but I found pearl fragments in the garage trash. Mom, that's abuse. You know that, right? More silence, then. I have to go. He's coming. She hung up, leaving me with another piece of the puzzle. Sarah had been listening. Your mother might be ready to talk. Victims often need to see someone else break free before they can imagine it for themselves. That afternoon, I went through old photos and documents building Sarah's case. I found pictures from events where Harold's mood had ruined celebrations. My college graduation where he'd stormed out because I'd thanked my professors, but not him. Emma's first art show where he'd loudly critiqued her work to other parents. Wedding photos where his speech had included jokes about my failures. Lauren texted with updates from the family chat. They'd moved from intervention planning to damage control. Apparently, the TikTok video had been shared by a popular account about toxic families, and distant relatives were asking questions. Melanie was furious. This is making our family look bad. Trina needs to make Emma take down these videos. But something interesting was happening. Other people were coming forward with Harold's stories. Mrs. Patterson from next door messaged me. I didn't want to interfere, but your father destroyed our fence during a property line dispute 10 years ago. We were too intimidated to pursue it. The owner of the local hardware store reached out. Harold vandalized my shop window when I refused to give him a military discount he didn't qualify for. I have security footage. Sarah compiled everything into a folder. This shows a pattern of violent property destruction spanning decades. It's not about teaching lessons or fiscal responsibility. It's about control through fear. She was right. Every incident followed the same pattern. Someone challenged Harold's authority or failed to meet his expectations, and he responded with destruction. That evening, I found Emma trying to work on her portfolio using our ancient desktop computer. It crashed every few minutes, unable to handle her design software. "I'm going to lose the state competition," she said quietly. Sophia made the finals too. Her parents bought her an iPad Pro last year. The unfairness of it all made me want to scream. Instead, I hugged her. "We're going to make this right. I don't know how yet, but we will." She leaned into me, feeling smaller than her 16 years. "Why does Grandpa hate me so much?" I didn't have an answer that would make sense to her. How could I explain that Harold hated anything he couldn't control, anything that reminded him of his own failures? Kyle called unexpectedly that night. Melanie's husband rarely contacted me directly. "Trina, I need to tell you something. Melanie doesn't know I'm calling." He sounded nervous. "Harold borrowed $50,000 from Joyce's mother's estate. Lost it all in cryptocurrency. He's desperate and taking it out on everyone." The final piece clicked into place. Harold's rage about the MacBook wasn't about waste. It was about watching me provide something he couldn't. "There's more," Kyle continued. "Melanie knows about the debt. She's been managing their finances, helping hide it from Joyce. They're worried about their inheritance if Joyce finds out and leaves him." The betrayal went deeper than I'd imagined. My sister was actively helping our father hide financial abuse from our mother while publicly supporting his attack on my parenting. I thanked Kyle for his honesty. "Why are you telling me this?" He sighed. "Because what happened at that party was wrong. Emma's a good kid. And honestly, I'm tired of pretending Melanie's family is perfect when it's built on lies and cruelty." After we hung up, I sat in the dark living room processing everything. The investigation had revealed more than I'd expected. This wasn't about one destroyed laptop or one ruined birthday. This was about a lifetime of control through destruction, enabled by family members who benefited from staying silent. But now I had evidence, witnesses, and most importantly, the clarity to see the pattern. The question was, what would I do with it? The Riverside Community Center hosted monthly town hall meetings where residents discussed local issues and upcoming events. That Thursday's agenda included the Homeowners Association president election, with Harold running unopposed. He'd been campaigning for weeks, leveraging his military background and promising to bring discipline and fiscal responsibility to the neighborhood. I knew this was my chance. Sarah helped me prepare a presentation using the evidence we'd gathered. Marcus transferred the party videos to a USB drive, editing them into a single, clear narrative. Emma initially resisted participating but changed her mind after her art teacher, Mrs. Coleman, had to withdraw Emma's competition entry due to missing portfolio pieces. "I want people to know what he took from me," she said with quiet determination. The meeting was scheduled for 7 p.m. By 6:30, the main hall was packed with over 200 residents. Harold held court near the stage, shaking hands and sharing war stories. Joyce sat in the front row, wearing her church dress and fixed smile. Melanie flanked Harold's other side, playing the devoted daughter perfectly. They looked like a campaign poster for family values. I arrived with Emma, Sarah, and a small group of supporters. Mrs. Patterson came despite her fear of confrontation. The hardware store owner, Mr. Chen, brought his security footage on his phone. Even Kyle showed up, sitting separately from Melanie, who didn't notice him in the crowd. Emma wore her art club shirt, a quiet statement of defiance. The meeting began with standard community business. I waded through discussions about parking regulations and upcoming fundraisers, my heart pounding. Finally, the HOA election segment began. Harold took the stage to present his candidacy, confident in his unopposed status. His speech hit all the expected notes: leadership, accountability, protecting property values, and maintaining standards. "As your president, I'll ensure our community doesn't fall into decay like so many others," he declared. "We need someone who understands discipline and isn't afraid to make tough decisions." The audience applauded politely. Several veterans in the crowd nodded approvingly. This was Harold's element, commanding a room with military authority. When the moderator opened the floor for questions, I stood up. Harold's expression shifted slightly, but he maintained his politician's smile. Yes, Trina. Do you have a question about my platform? I walked to the microphone they'd set up in the center aisle, USB drive in hand. Actually, I have some information the community should consider before voting. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. The moderator, Mrs. Jennings, looked uncertain. This is meant for questions about the HOA election. Sarah stood up from her seat. As a resident and legal representative, I believe this information directly relates to Mr. Morrison's fitness for community leadership. Her professional tone carried weight. Mrs. Jennings reluctantly agreed to allow 5 minutes. I handed the USB to the tech volunteer, and the large screen behind Harold flickered to life. Community leadership requires more than military service. It requires respect for others and emotional stability. The first video began playing Harold at Emma's party ranting about waste and materialism. The audio was crystal clear in the silent hall. Then came the destruction. The hammer smashing down on the MacBook, Emma's screams, the shocked faces of children watching. Several audience members gasped. Parents pulled their kids closer. The video showed Harold's satisfied expression as he stood over the destroyed laptop, declaring he'd taught a lesson. Emma's broken sobs provided a haunting soundtrack. "This was my daughter's 16th birthday," I said simply. "That laptop represented months of my double shifts as a nurse, but more importantly, it held her entire digital art portfolio for college applications." On screen, Emma knelt among the debris in her party dress, trying to gather pieces of her destroyed future. Harold's face had turned deep red. "This is a family matter. It has nothing to do with HOA business." But I wasn't finished. The screen changed to show a compilation Sarah had made, photos from events Harold had ruined, screenshots of his social media rants, and testimonials we'd collected. "This isn't an isolated incident. This is a pattern spanning decades." Mrs. Patterson found courage and stood up. "He destroyed my fence during an argument and threatened me when I asked for repairs." Mr. Chen joined her. "He vandalized my store because I wouldn't give him an unearned discount. I have security footage." More voices emerged from the crowd, sharing their own Harold encounters. The upstanding military man's reputation cracked with each testimony. Emma took the microphone next, her voice shaking but clear. "My grandfather has criticized my art since I was 8 years old. He's called me worthless, told me I'd fail, destroyed my confidence along with my property." She looked directly at Harold. "But I'm still here, still creating, and I want everyone to know what kind of man wants to lead this community." The room erupted. Some audience members shouted support for Emma, while Harold's supporters tried to defend him. Melanie jumped up, pointing at me. "This is a vindictive attack. My father was trying to teach fiscal responsibility." But her voice was drowned out by Mr. Rodriguez, whose daughter was in Emma's art class. "Teaching, he traumatized children. My daughter had nightmares after that party." Joyce suddenly stood up, and the room quieted. Everyone expected her to defend Harold as always. Instead, she faced the audience with tears streaming. "I'm tired," she said simply. 40 years of walking on eggshells, making excuses, pretending destruction is discipline." She looked at Harold. "I can't do it anymore. What you did to Emma was the final straw." Harold tried to storm off the stage, but the crowd had pressed in, blocking easy exit. Kyle stood up near the back. "Harold Morrison owes my mother-in-law $50,000 from her inheritance. He lost it gambling on cryptocurrency while preaching about fiscal responsibility." Melanie's shriek of "Kyle" was drowned out by the crowd's reaction. The moderator tried to restore order, but the damage was done. When she finally called for the vote, Harold lost spectacularly. Only 12 people voted for him, mostly his veteran buddies who'd leave early. Over 150 voted for Mrs. Chen, who'd been hastily nominated as an alternative. The man who'd commanded rooms for decades left in humiliation. But the revelation's impact had only begun. Someone had been streaming the meeting on Facebook Live. By the time we got home, the video had been shared hundreds of times. Local news picked it up. HOA candidate loses election after birthday destruction video goes viral. The headline didn't capture the full story, but it was a start. Emma hugged me in the parking lot afterward. "Thank you for standing up for me," she whispered. Around us, community members offered support. Mrs. Coleman promised to help Emma rebuild her portfolio. Several parents offered to lend Emma their old tablets or computers. Mr. Chen pulled me aside. "Your father terrorized this neighborhood for years. Thank you for finally exposing him." Melanie confronted me before we left, mascara streaking her face. "You've ruined everything: Dad's reputation, my marriage, Mom's leaving him. Are you happy?" I looked at my younger sister, who'd chosen Harold's approval over truth for so long. "I'm not happy, Melanie, but I'm free. And so is Emma. That's what matters." Kyle approached as Melanie stormed off. "I'm filing for divorce," he said quietly. "Tonight showed me who she really is. Anyone who could watch a child be hurt like that and defend the abuser, I can't stay married to that." He handed Emma an envelope. "For your new laptop. Consider it an apology for not speaking up sooner." As we drove home, Emma was quiet but not withdrawn. She rolled down the window, letting the night air whip through her hair. "Mom, do you think Grandpa will ever understand what he did wrong?" I thought carefully before answering. "Probably not, honey. Some people are so invested in being right that they can't see the damage they cause. But Grandma saw it tonight," she said hopefully. Finally. That was true. Joyce's public stand had shocked everyone, including me. Maybe there was hope for healing, though not in the way Harold had preached. Real healing meant acknowledging wounds, not pretending they didn't exist. Tonight, our community had done just that. The next 72 hours unfolded like dominoes falling in rapid succession. Harold's public humiliation had shattered his carefully constructed image, and the repercussions rippled through every aspect of his life. By Friday morning, the video had accumulated over 1 million views across various social media platforms. Someone had edited it with captions highlighting the key moments: "Veteran destroys granddaughter's birthday gift," "Community rallies against HOA bully," and my personal favorite, "Grandma finally speaks up after 40 years." The first major consequence came from Harold's veteran organization. The Riverside Veterans Association had been his pride and joy, where he served as treasurer and regular speaker at events. But several younger veterans had seen the video and raised concerns at an emergency board meeting. Tom Bradley, an Iraq War veteran who'd brought his family to Emma's party, led the charge. "This isn't the leadership we stand for," he argued. "We're supposed to protect and serve, not terrorize our own families." By noon, Harold had been stripped of his treasurer position and asked to take a voluntary leave from the organization. He showed up at my workplace that afternoon, causing a scene in the hospital lobby. "You did this," he screamed, pointing his finger in my face. "You turned everyone against me. That organization was my life." Security arrived quickly, escorting him out while my coworkers watched in shock. Dr. Peterson pulled me aside afterward. "Trina, we need to discuss safety protocols. This escalation is concerning." Joyce, meanwhile, had followed through on her public declaration. She'd packed a bag and showed up at my door Friday evening, looking simultaneously terrified and relieved. "I can't go back there," she said simply. 45 years is enough." Emma helped her grandmother settle into our guest room while I made tea. It was surreal seeing my mother outside of Harold's shadow, making her own choices. "I found a lawyer," Joyce admitted over chamomile tea. "Been saving cash in a coffee can for years. Never thought I'd use it, but after seeing Emma's face at that party." She trailed off, then pulled out a manila envelope. "I brought paperwork. Financial records Harold doesn't know I have, including the cryptocurrency disaster." The meticulous records showed Harold had blown through not just 50,000, but closer to 75,000 of Joyce's inheritance. Saturday brought a new crisis. Melanie, panicking about her crumbling marriage and lost inheritance prospects, launched her own social media campaign. She posted a video response sitting in her pristine kitchen trying to paint me as the villain. "My sister has always been jealous of our family's success," she claimed. "This whole thing is manufactured drama to get attention and sympathy." That laptop was probably already broken. Her video backfired spectacularly. Emma's friends, tech-savvy teenagers who'd documented everything, responded with receipts. Marcus posted screenshots of my Apple Store purchase tagged with 3 months of double shifts to buy this. Sophia shared before and after photos of Emma's digital portfolio, showing the beautiful work lost in the destruction. The comment sections turned into a digital battlefield, but the evidence was overwhelmingly on our side. The GoFundMe that Mr. Rodriguez started exceeded $5,000 by Saturday night. The description read, "Help Emma rebuild her digital art portfolio and pursue her dreams. Let's show her that creativity matters more than cruelty." Donations poured in from strangers touched by the story, but also from unexpected sources. Several of Harold's former military buddies contributed, adding notes like, "This isn't the man I served with," and "Supporting the next generation." Sunday morning, Harold made his biggest mistake yet. He showed up at my house at dawn, pounding on the door and demanding Joyce come home. I called 911 while Joyce hid in the bathroom with Emma. Harold was screaming about his rights as a husband, about ownership, about discipline. The neighbors came out, several filming as he tried to break down my door with his shoulder. When the police arrived, Harold turned his rage on them. "This is my family. You can't keep a man from his own wife." His refusal to leave, combined with the existing restraining order I'd filed, resulted in his arrest. The image of Harold Morrison in handcuffs being placed in a patrol car while ranting about respect and authority became the final nail in his reputation's coffin. Kyle reached out that afternoon with more revelations. "Melanie's been hiding money in offshore accounts. She knew the inheritance was gone and has been preparing to leave your father high and dry. I'm giving this information to Joyce's lawyer." The depth of my sister's betrayal stunned me. She'd been playing all sides, protecting herself while enabling Harold's abuse. The Apple Store manager David called with unexpected news. "I showed your story to our regional manager. Apple wants to help. We're offering Emma a replacement MacBook Pro at cost plus free classes at our store to help her rebuild her portfolio." When I protested that I couldn't afford even the reduced price, he continued, "The GoFundMe should more than cover it. This is about supporting young artists. Your daughter's talent deserves nurturing." By Monday, the legal consequences began. Harold was charged with vandalism, violation of a restraining order, and attempted breaking and entering. His military pension would be garnished for Joyce's support during separation proceedings. The man who'd preached financial responsibility faced bankruptcy from legal fees and Joyce's inheritance lawsuit. The Veterans Organization went further, conducting an investigation into Harold's financial management as treasurer. Discrepancies emerged, suggesting he'd been skimming funds for years. "We trusted him because of his service record," Tom Bradley told me privately. "But that video showed his true character. We're auditing everything." Melanie's marriage imploded publicly when Kyle filed for divorce and shared evidence of her financial deceptions with Joyce's lawyer. Her perfect suburban life crumbled as quickly as Harold's reputation. She tried calling me repeatedly, leaving voicemails that swung between threats and pleas. "You've destroyed our family, I'll never forgive you." Followed hours later by, "Please talk to Kyle, tell him I can change. We're sisters." Emma returned to school with her head high, bolstered by the overwhelming support. Her art teacher organized a Creativity Rises event where students donated supplies and shared techniques to help her rebuild her portfolio. The story had inspired conversations about toxic family dynamics, financial abuse, and standing up to bullies regardless of their relationship to you. Harold's final attempt at control came through his lawyer, a cease and desist letter demanding I remove all videos and posts about the incident. Sarah laughed when she read it. He's claiming defamation. Everything posted is factual, documented, and witnessed by dozens. This is desperation, not legal strategy. She filed a counter motion that essentially told Harold's lawyer to pound sand. But the most significant consequence was the change in our daily lives. Emma worked on her art with renewed passion, using a borrowed tablet while waiting for her new MacBook. Joyce began therapy, unpacking decades of suppressed trauma. She also started volunteering at a women's shelter, sharing her story with others trapped in controlling relationships. "If I can leave after 40 years, anyone can," she'd say. I received messages from people around the world who'd seen the video. Parents thanked me for showing them what not to become. Adult children of controlling parents shared their own stories of destruction and survival. One message particularly touched me. "Your daughter is lucky. My father destroyed my violin when I was 15. I'm 40 now and still can't hear classical music without crying. You broke the cycle." The community response continued to amaze me. Local businesses offered Emma internships and mentorship. The owner of a design firm wanted to see her work once she rebuilt it. Talent like hers combined with resilience. "That's exactly who we want to hire," she said. Emma's destroyed laptop had inadvertently opened doors that might have remained closed. 2 weeks after the town hall, Harold had lost everything he'd valued: his reputation, his positions of authority, his financial security, and his family's compliance. He was living in a motel, banned from veterans' events, facing criminal charges and divorced proceedings. The man who'd destroyed so many precious things finally faced the destruction of his own making. But unlike Emma's laptop or my childhood flute, what Harold had broken in himself couldn't be replaced or repaired. His legacy wasn't leadership or strength, but a viral video showing the world exactly who he'd always been. 3 months after the birthday party that changed everything, our lives had settled into a new rhythm. Emma's laughter filled our house again, a sound I'd feared might disappear forever. She worked at her new desk setup, the replacement MacBook Pro, humming quietly as she perfected her portfolio. The wall above her workspace displayed printouts of support messages from strangers worldwide, a daily reminder that her story had touched thousands. Joyce had transformed in ways that amazed us all. The timid woman who'd spent 4 decades tiptoeing around Harold's moods now walked with confidence. She'd joined a book club, started water aerobics, and even got highlights in her hair, something Harold had forbidden as wasteful vanity. Living with us temporarily had evolved into a permanent arrangement that benefited everyone. Emma had her grandmother's daily support, I had help with household expenses, and Joyce had the family she'd always wanted but been too controlled to create. "I wasted so many years," she told me one evening as we prepared dinner together. "But my therapist says it's never too late to choose differently." Dr. Martinez had helped Joyce recognize the patterns of control and manipulation she'd endured. The therapy sessions were difficult, but necessary, each one peeling back layers of normalized abuse. Joyce emerged from each appointment exhausted but clearer about her own worth. The legal proceedings had concluded, with Harold receiving 6 months of community service and mandatory anger management classes. The judge, after reviewing the evidence and impact statements, had been particularly moved by Emma's testimony about the destruction of her artistic dreams. "Mr. Morrison, you didn't just destroy property. You attempted to destroy a child's future out of spite and control. This behavior stops now." Harold had aged visibly during the court proceedings. His military bearing had crumbled, replaced by the slouch of a man whose worldview had shattered. He completed his community service at a youth center, ironically helping teens with art projects. The supervisor reported he did the minimum required, never engaging with the kids' creativity. Some lessons, it seemed, came too late to learn. Emma's recovery inspired me daily. She'd channeled her pain into her art, creating a series titled "Broken but Beautiful" that caught the attention of several colleges. Using photos and videos from the birthday destruction, she'd created multimedia pieces exploring resilience, family dysfunction, and the power of community support. Her artist's statement read, "My grandfather tried to destroy my tools, but he only strengthened my voice." The state competition she'd thought lost became her triumph. Mrs. Coleman had successfully petitioned for a deadline extension explaining Emma's circumstances. Working with borrowed equipment and incredible determination, Emma had rebuilt her portfolio from memory and sketches. When she won second place, the entire art department celebrated. The judges' comments specifically praised the emotional depth and authenticity of her work. Melanie's journey toward redemption began with a letter. It arrived 2 months after Kyle filed for divorce, handwritten on plain paper instead of her usual monogrammed stationery. "I've been seeing a therapist," she wrote, "finally understanding how toxic our family dynamics were, how I perpetuated them. I'm sorry, Trina, for everything. I chose Dad's approval over truth, over compassion, over you and Emma. I don't expect forgiveness, but I needed you to know. I wasn't ready to reconcile immediately, and Sarah had advised setting clear boundaries. When Melanie reached out again, I agreed to meet at a neutral location. She looked different, humbled. The designer clothes remained, but the smugness had vanished. I lost everything," she admitted over coffee. "Kyle, my home, most of my friends. But maybe I needed to lose it all to see what I'd become." You watched him destroy Emma's birthday and supported him. I reminded her, not ready to offer easy absolution. She nodded, tears flowing. "I know. That moment haunts me. Seeing Emma on her knees crying and I stood there defending him. What kind of person does that? The kind raised by Harold Morrison, I thought but didn't say. We were all products of his control, but we'd chosen different paths." Melanie started volunteering at the same women's shelter where Joyce worked, beginning her own journey of making amends. She attended family therapy sessions with us, slowly rebuilding trust. Emma remained cautious but open. "People can change," she said, with wisdom beyond her 16 years. "But they have to earn the chance to prove it." The community support group I'd started met weekly at the community center. Breaking the cycle attracted dozens of participants, all sharing stories of family dysfunction and recovery. We discussed setting boundaries, recognizing manipulation, and protecting the next generation. Harold's public downfall had given others permission to speak their own truths. The ripple effects continued spreading. Emma's new MacBook became more than a replacement. It symbolized community triumph over individual cruelty. She used it to create thank you videos for every GoFundMe donor, design logos for local businesses that had supported us, and mentor younger students in digital art. "Grandpa thought destroying one laptop would end my dreams," she said in her college application essay. "Instead, he taught me that creativity always finds a way." The acceptance letters started arriving in March. Rhode Island School of Design, Parsons, California Institute of the Arts. Every school Emma had dreamed of attending wanted her. The portfolio she'd rebuilt was stronger than the original, infused with lived experience and emotional truth. She chose Parsons partly for their program, but mostly because they'd offered a scholarship specifically for students who'd overcome adversity through art. Kyle stayed in touch, eventually dating a woman from the support group who understood toxic family dynamics. He'd apologized repeatedly for not speaking up sooner. "I knew Melanie was wrong, but I chose comfortable silence over difficult truth. Emma paid the price for my cowardice." His financial support had helped, but his willingness to testify about Harold and Melanie's deceptions had mattered more. On Emma's 17th birthday, we held another party in the same community garden. This time, joy remained uninterrupted. Harold was serving his community service across town, legally barred from contact. Joyce baked the cake herself, a skill she'd rediscovered in freedom. Melanie attended cautiously, bringing art supplies and genuine warmth. The same friends who'd witnessed destruction now celebrated rebirth. As Emma blew out her candles, I thought about cycles and choices. Harold had inherited his controlling nature from his own stern father, passing trauma through generations like a twisted heirloom. But we'd broken that chain. Emma would go to art school carrying creativity, not cruelty. Joyce would age surrounded by chosen family, not fear. Even Melanie had hope for healing. The destroyed MacBook sat in our garage, kept as evidence but also as reminder. Sometimes Emma used pieces in her art transforming destruction into creation. "It's not about the laptop anymore," she explained to a documentary filmmaker who'd reached out about our story. "It's about refusing to let someone else's rage define your future." I returned to regular nursing shifts, no longer needing doubles to afford impossible gifts. The financial pressure had eased with Joyce contributing, and the legal settlements finalized. But more importantly, the emotional weight had lifted. We no longer lived in anticipation of Harold's next explosion or Melanie's next betrayal. Peace felt strange, but wonderful. Dr. Peterson had promoted me to charge nurse, noting my ability to handle crisis with calm determination. "After what you managed with your family hospital emergencies must seem simple," she joked, but she was partly right. Facing Harold publicly had taught me that speaking truth, however difficult, was always better than preserving false peace. The final scene of our story came at Emma's high school graduation. She'd been selected to give the artist's address, speaking about creativity in adversity. Harold wasn't there, having moved to another state to live with his brother. But everyone who mattered was present: Joyce in the front row, with tissues ready. Melanie recording proudly, Kyle and his new girlfriend cheering, the entire art department wearing Team Emma shirts Mrs. Coleman had designed. "2 years ago, someone tried to destroy my dreams with a hammer," Emma told the packed auditorium. But dreams aren't stored in laptops. They live in communities that refuse to let cruelty win. Every one of you who stood up, spoke out, or simply said, "This is wrong," helped rebuild more than a computer. You rebuilt faith in humanity's capacity to choose kindness over control. The standing ovation lasted minutes. In the crowd, I saw faces from the town hall meeting, the Apple Store, the support group. David waved from the back, proud of the young artist he'd helped twice. Mr. Chen wiped tears, remembering his own stand against Harold's bullying. Tom Bradley saluted Emma, one warrior recognizing another's courage. Later at our celebration dinner, Emma raised her juice glass for a toast. "To Mom, who showed me that love means standing up, not standing by. To Grandma Joyce, who proved it's never too late to choose freedom. To everyone who turned our worst day into our best beginning. And yes, even to Grandpa Harold, who taught me the most valuable lesson of all." We waited, curious about her conclusion. Emma smiled, wise beyond her years. "He taught me that someone can try to smash your tools, but they can never destroy your talent. They can break your possessions, but not your spirit." The MacBook was replaceable. My family's courage in that community center, that was priceless. So here's to breaking cycles, building dreams, and always, always choosing creation over destruction. We clinked glasses, our small family that had grown stronger through shattering. Outside, spring bloomed with promise. Emma would leave for Parsons in the fall, carrying her rebuilt dreams and hard-won wisdom. Joyce would continue healing, maybe even dating the nice widower from water aerobics. Melanie would keep working on redemption, one sincere day at a time. And me, I'd learn that protecting your child sometimes means public confrontation, that family isn't always blood, but often choice, and that the most powerful revenge isn't destruction, but truth. Harold had smashed a laptop. In response, we'd rebuilt our entire lives. The MacBook was indeed replaceable. My daughter's spirit never was. She'd proven that beyond doubt, creating beauty from broken pieces, rising stronger from every blow. As Emily Dickinson wrote, "Hope is the thing with feathers." But Emma had taught me something more. Hope is the teenager who picks up shattered dreams and builds them bigger, the grandmother who finds freedom at 70, the community that says enough to generational trauma. Hope is choosing creation over destruction always. And that choice, unlike any possession, is truly unbreakable. Thank you for joining me on this incredible journey of standing up to bullies and breaking generational cycles. If this story resonated with you, please share it with someone who might need to hear that they're not alone in dealing with toxic family dynamics. What's your experience with family members who disguise control as concern? Drop a comment below and let's build a supportive community together. Don't forget to hit that like button if you believe in choosing creativity over destruction, and subscribe for more real stories of triumph over adversity. Remember, your dreams are stronger than anyone's attempts to destroy them. Until next time, keep creating, keep standing tall, and never let anyone dim your light.